the name of Christ who calls us. You all remember that time Deacon John Ackerman was out in the congregation and his phone went off in his pocket? And then Richard gets up here and says, in the name of Christ who calls us. I never forget that. So, we're trudging through the season of Epiphany. We're tripping lightly through the season of Epiphany, whatever it is we're doing. And it's really not the season of Epiphany. It's really the season after Epiphany, technically. And the season has a quality of revelation. And we start with this idea of Jesus being revealed to us. But, of course, revelation isn't the end of the story, because a response is required to a revelation. So today we have a story about the revelation and the response in the calling of the disciples to follow Jesus. I'm wondering if you can think of a movie that ends like this. This couple who have found each other and fallen deeply in love are in an airport. And one of them is going to have to get on a plane. And the other one's going to have to turn around and walk out the door. And they're torn and they're tearful, but, you know, this is how it is. And so the man or the woman, doesn't matter which, one of them goes towards the plane, one of them goes towards the door, and then somewhere along the lines, somebody has an epiphany. Oh my gosh, this truly is the love of my life. How can I let him go, or how can I let her go, you know? And then the other one, you see, you know, boarding the plane, has the same epiphany, you know, just before the door of the plane it closes or something. And then they're running through the airport and crashing into each other and declaring their undying love and leaving everything behind. I mean, I think there are 14 or 15 of those movies. And it's always a great moment, isn't it? I mean, the idea of a love that is so compelling that you leave everything behind, all that seemed so important, pales in comparison with the preciousness of this relationship. When was the last time you dropped everything, like the disciples do in the story today? When was the last time something happened that was so important and compelling that nothing else mattered? Everything else got silent. Maybe it was to go to the bedside of someone you felt you might lose. Some of us have enlisted to serve our country in a time of national threat. I remember the night we got that phone call saying that Aiden was on the way. In the middle of the night, getting out of bed, hopping in the car, driving those 4 hours down to the hospital to meet our son. There are those moments, but they don't happen all that often, do they? This is ordinary time, as I said before. And I think we experience our lives as ordinary. We don't expect a whole lot of ourselves most of the time. We're busy. Our nose is to the grindstone, and when we're not doing whatever it is we feel we must be doing, we're lost in entertainment. Hard to be bored. We don't often have a lot of space or quiet in our lives for listening to our hearts or our consciences. So if a sense of call were to come to us, we might not hear it. And on the other hand, I'm not sure that we want to hear it all the time. I remember when I was a kid, my absolute worst fear about being a Christian was that God might call me to be a missionary. And so there's a part of us that I think is a little defensive right? If God were to call me to do something like, I don't know, teach Sunday school, what would I do? I'd rather not get the call at all than say no. So there's a way in which I think we kind of have a defensive shield that kind of reminds me of the way a certain person in my household tends to not hear things. Unless it's a very convenient thing to hear. So sometimes it takes a little bit for a call to overcome our resistance or our fear. And that does happen. There are those moments, those magic moments almost, when we feel like, oh, I get it, this is really what I need to do now. Sometimes there's enough community, there's enough of an upswell of enthusiasm about something that it's easy for us to join in, maybe hard for us not to. There's that energy and other folks are doing it and it's clearly the right thing to do. I think about how some folks felt about the last election. We've got this Wine into Water campaign coming up, and it's a diocesan thing, and there's a fair amount of energy around it. And then there's Cherie Weiss, waving the banner and getting us to come to Mardi Gras, and she makes it look like so much fun. We're talking about raising money to help people drink clean water, which is a good cause, but Cherie makes it sound like you can't resist. How can you not come eat good food and play and dance and, and being on the committee would be a blast, because you get to hang out with someone like Cherie. And sometimes we have a vision of a compelling need. Sometimes we encounter pain or trouble or difficulty in the world, and we just know in our guts it's something we have to respond to, and we find a way to do that. Maybe in our own life circumstances, something terrible has happened and we want to help others who are in the same circumstance, or maybe we just see and our compassion is aroused. These things happen that get us past our resistance and get us past our fear and awaken us to a larger sense of call